Steve, you're muted.
Okay, we will start again. We are Tillamook United Methodist Church, Nehalem Bay United Methodist Church, Camp Magruder, Bay City UMC, and that's it. We'll see if my entire day is going to be off now. I'm Steve Wolf, the resident pastor at Nehalem Bay United Methodist, and I coordinate our ministries throughout Tillamook County. We're joined by Carol Brown, who's the pastoral coordinator at Tillamook United Methodist. And some things to keep in mind as we start. Please keep yourselves muted unless otherwise instructed. Now, if you look at your screen, you will see, if we go to the right spots, that there is a place where you can click for speaker view. That will put the speaker as your central person and your other members of the congregation either across the top or down the side. If you go down to the center in the of your screen at the bottom, you will find the chat feature. Click on that, the chat box will come up and you can click in right here and give us your prayer requests. Today, our participants will include Steve and Nancy Kershaw and Cecilia Dwiggins from Tillamook United Methodist, Peter Nunn and Francis Hartwell from Nehalem Bay. Music comes to us today from our socially distanced choirs from both congregations, as well as a solo from Ben Douglas of Bay City, and a hymn that will be led by a Korean pastor who has kindly recorded a number of hymns and made them available online. Now, we are still experimenting with some new ways of bringing song lyrics to you, so you can sing along with pre-recorded words and other people singing. Poor Bishop Hooper will bring us Psalm 61, and Pastor Mario will give us a sung benediction at the end. Now, we have been able to run down many of the problems we've had in the past, but we're still doing some experimentation, so you never know what the gremlins might bring in on us today. I want to mention to you now that we will be having communion next Sunday, so be sure to have your elements with you. And now let us worship God together.
Good morning, all. Welcome this day to the second step on our Lenten journey.
We come with great hope and expectation as we walk the way of Christ.
Today's journey will demand much of us.
Lord, make us ready to offer ourselves to you.
Come, let us begin again the wondrous excursion.
Let us place our lives in God's abiding love. Amen.
Invite you to join together as we whoops.
As we whoops.
As we whoops, excuse me. The whoops was because we were going to sing Great is Thy Faithfulness, but someone else was sharing their screen. So only one of us can do that at a time. Let's sing together.
There is no shadow
Well, and oh, there she is.
The first reading is from Genesis chapter 17, verses 1 through 8, and then verses 15 and 16. When Abram was 99 years old, God showed up and said to him, I am the strong God. Live entirely before me. Live to the hilt. I'll make a covenant between us, and I'll give you a huge family. Overwhelmed, Abram fell flat on his face. Then God said to him, This is my covenant with you. You'll be the father of many nations. Your name will no longer be Abram, but Abraham, meaning that I'm making you the father of many nations. I'll make you a father of fathers. I'll make nations from you. Kings will issue from you. I'm establishing my covenant between me and you, a covenant that includes your descendants, a covenant that goes on and on and on, a covenant that commits me to be your God and the God of your descendants. And I'm giving you and your descendants this land where you're now just camping, this whole country of Canaan to own forever, and I'll be their God. God continued speaking to Abraham, and Sarai, your wife, don't call her Sarai any longer, and call her Sarah. I'll bless her, and yes, I'll give you a son by her. Oh, how I'll bless her. Nations will come from her. Kings of nations will come from her. Thus ends this exciting news from the first reading.
Well, another day, another covenant. To remind you, last week we spoke about the covenant of Noah. God regretted creating the cosmos due to the wickedness of humanity. So God flooded the earth with the waters of chaos and destroyed everything, except Noah and a representative group of animals. After the waters receded, God made a covenant with all of creation to never again destroy the world by flood. And as a sign, he took his war bow and stuck it in the sky to act as a kind of, I don't know, celestial post-it note. When God sees the bow, he remembers, oh yeah, right. Don't destroy the world again. Got it. Now today, another covenant. The last one was with all of creation. This one is with one man and with a family and with all of humanity. The first covenant was around a promise not to destroy. This one is a covenant to create, to bring new life to a 99-year-old man and an 89-year-old woman. A covenant to create a family. And through that family, bind together all the families of humanity. The first covenant saw God binding the divine power of destruction, willingly limiting God's self. This new covenant is God binding the divine power of creation, willingly inviting humanity into the generative process, the generative power of God to create and create community. God limiting himself by binding himself to creation and humanity through covenant relationship with Noah and Abraham. Kind of makes you wonder what's going to be part of the Jesus covenant. Well, as we celebrate this hope that comes to us through the covenant, I invite you to sing together the hymn of promise.
In the world there is a flower Mark chapter 8, starting in verse 31. He then began to teach them that the Son of Man must suffer many things and be rejected by the elders, the chief priests, and the teachers of the law, and that he must be killed and after 3 days rise again. He spoke plainly about this, and Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. But when Jesus turned and looked at his disciples, he rebuked Peter. "Get behind me, Satan," he said. "You do not have in mind the concerns of God, but merely human concerns." Then he called the crowd to him along with his disciples and said, "Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me and for the gospel will save it. What good is it for someone to gain the whole world yet forfeit their soul? Or what can anyone give in exchange for their soul? If anyone is ashamed of me and of my words in this adulterous and sinful generation, the Son of Man will be ashamed of them when he comes in his Father's glory with the holy angels."
Have you heard the saying that when you do something really stupid and get yourself locked up in jail, a friend is someone who comes to the jail to visit you? A true friend is someone who will come to the jail to bail you out. And the best friend is someone who will look over from the next cell and say, "Wow, wasn't that a blast?" Well, I bring this up because there is this idea, particularly in the late 20th century, that Jesus and Peter weren't just disciple and master. They weren't even just friends. They were best friends. And it was a friendship kind of like, the one you see in those buddy movies. Jesus was the hero, handsome, smart, capable, and cool. Peter was the sidekick, inept, quirky, always doing or saying something wrong. And Jesus had to straighten him out all the time. So this story that our Peter just read, the great "Get thee behind me, Satan" story, has been used as a prime example of how this relationship worked. As you look at it, in the scene just before this, they were all sitting around in Caesarea Philippi. Now, there's this area in Caesarea Philippi that is this huge temple complex dedicated to just about every god you could think of in the Mediterranean. And it features this big cave that is known as the Gates of Hades, the entrance to the underworld. And while they're there, Jesus asked them, "Who do people say that I am?" Well, they give all the popular answers. Elijah, one of the prophets, the historical stuff. Then Jesus says to the disciples, "Well, who are you telling people I am?" Peter jumps right in there. "You are God's anointed Messiah." And Jesus shushes them up. "Tell no one about this." Okay, scene 2, our scene this morning. They're walking down the road, and Jesus is telling the disciples what being the anointed one of God means, particularly how it entails suffering and death and resurrection. Peter takes Jesus aside and says, No. We can't have that. That isn't necessary. Don't worry, Jesus, we can fix this. And Jesus turns on him with, "Get thee behind me, Satan." Oh, poor Peter. We think, he's such a dope. He means well. He just gets things mixed up. Why is Jesus so mean to him? And then, cue Peter with hurt puppy eyes. Great story. It's just not what's written in the book. After Jesus told them these things, Peter takes him aside there on the road and began to rebuke, chastise, lecture him. The language here is the same for both Jesus and for Peter. What is going on is that Peter was mad, and he took Jesus aside right there on the road and had a come to Moses meeting. Peter let loose on Jesus about how wrong he was. And Jesus looked at Peter and the disciples standing there overhearing. And Jesus got mad right back at him. He let Peter have it. And I think that is how we know what close friends Jesus and Peter were. That Peter was more than a sidekick or a foil for Jesus's preaching. They cared enough, they trusted enough to get angry enough to work through the important stuff. And that is the point where we see the Jesus covenant. In the rainbow, we have God's covenant not to destroy us. In Abraham, we have God's covenant to bring us life. In Jesus, we have God's covenant to see us through life to the other side. We find that in the admonition that Jesus gave the disciples in the crowd: take up your cross and follow me. I suppose some of you probably are wearing a cross right now. Gold, enamel, some jewels. It's a pretty safe symbol, because we now, all these years later, having read the end of the book, it's been redeemed by the resurrection. For the people hearing Mark's gospel for the first time 2,000 years ago, there would have been that resurrectional association. There would have been that redemption of the symbol of the cross, but they also would have seen crosses on the edge of the road with executed bodies on them. It was a symbol of hope, yes, but it was a chilling symbol of hope. And those people, that crowd, those disciples standing on the road listening to an angry Jesus, it would only have one meaning for them: execution, death by suffering from the oppressive Romans. They may have passed some crucified individuals recently. They might be within eyesight of people dying on crosses at that very moment, because crosses were put right on the edge of the road. There was no on a hill far away. They were right there as a billboard of Roman power over your life. You toe the line, or this is what could happen to you. Jesus is reminding these people that in their life, they're constantly pursued by death. It is a dogging at their heels. It is their constant companion. But God is in covenant with them to not destroy, to bring life, and to go through life with them to the other side. And that's what Jesus is getting at telling them that the Son of Man, the anointed one of God, must undergo great suffering as they have in their lives, be rejected as they have in their lives, be killed as they someday will die, and after 3 days, rise again. That is the Jesus covenant. Let me try to explain it to you this way. Do you remember that there was this television show called West Wing? Not the recent presidential one, but back a few years. It was about this president and everyone who worked with him in the West Wing of the White House. Now, there was this one scene where White House Chief of Staff Leo McGarry reaches out to his deputy, Josh Lyman, a young man who's been struggling with PTSD. And Leo tells him a parable. This guy's walking down the street when he falls in a hole. The hole is so steep that he can't get out. A doctor passes by and the guy shouts up, "Hey, you, can you help me out?" The doctor writes a prescription and throws it down in the hole and moves on. Then a priest comes along and the guy shouts, "Father, I'm down in this hole. Can you help me out?" The priest writes out a prayer and throws it down into the hole and moves on. Then a friend of his walks by. "Hey, Joe, it's me. Can you help me out?" And the friend jumps down in the hole with him. Our guy says, "Are you stupid? Now we're both down here." And the friend says, "Yeah, but I've been down here before and I know the way out." You see, that is the scandal of the cross. That is the meaning of Lent. And that is the Jesus covenant. There's a postscript to this for us, a so what, if you will. I mean, Lord knows we've fallen in a hole and it's deep and it's dark. If it were not so, we wouldn't have to be together on Zoom. Most of the world would just like life to get back to normal, to the way things were, the way things are supposed to be, our lives, our recreations, our institutions. It will all come back if we just do one right thing, get the vaccination, or it'll be like it used to be and once long ago, which really in most cases means like it never was. See, Jesus said, if you want to become my followers, deny yourself, take up your cross and follow me. For those who want to save their life and insert in this, get back to normal, get back to the way it used to be, will lose it. And those who lose that old life for my sake and for the sake of the gospel, they will save it. We're in a deep, dark hole, but we are with the one who knows the way out. And if it were not so, we would not be here together. And that is the promise, the covenant that we have to offer the world as it is today. Amen. As you prepare now to meet with God in prayer, I invite you to listen to Psalm 61, a psalm of lament presented by poor Bishop Hooper.
Turn your ear, hear my prayer. I cry to you, you have been my refuge. I grow weary with a fainting heart. I long to be in your house, my shelter. Lead me, come lead me to the rock that stands above me. Come lead me to the rock that stands above me. You have heard every vow I have spoken. of me. Come lead me, come lead me to the rock that stands above me. Oh, lead me, come lead me to the rock that stands above me. Oh, lead me, come lead me to the rock that stands above me. Turn your ear, hear my prayer.
Finding no prayers this morning in the chat box, I'm going to share a few words from Laura Jean Truman. We are often of a mind to give up something for Lent or to fast, but Jean would have us look at it this way. It is so easy for Lent to become a series of attempts to get closer to God, instead of a time to remind ourselves that God is already as close to us as he could possibly be. All of our spiritual disciplines, all our fasts and feasts are only ways we learn to see God, who is right here, a breath away, fully loving us and accepting us before we have a single discipline, before we observe a single fast. And so go in peace this Sunday, knowing you are loved with what you can bring and what you've left behind in the failures and successes and everything in between. Amen.
Would you pray with me, please? Though people may turn their backs on us, you do not hide your face from us. Though others may try to take away our hope, you assure us of that future waiting for us. You speak your name, inscrutable Creator, and it is enough. When we try to dictate our fears to you, you invite us to follow you into self-denial and service. As we struggle to shape our lifestyle to yours, you carry us with you wherever we go. You speak your good news, teacher of open hearts, and it is enough. Though we have done nothing to earn them, you pour out your gifts of grace and mercy upon us. When we stumble over our lack of trust, you set us back on our feet to follow you into the kingdom. You speak your peace, breath of holiness, and it is enough. God in community, holy in one, it is enough that you hear us. Even as we pray as we are taught. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen.
Invite you now to sing the summons. Come and follow me, I will go.
Señor te bendiga y te guarde, haga resplandecer su rostro sobre ti y tenga de ti misericordia. El Señor hace sobre ti su rostro, ponga en ti la paz. Amén, amén,
Well, join us next week at the same time in the same place. The invitation that brought you here today will work next week, so you can share it around with others. We will be sending the Zoom invitation out along with posting it on Facebook and on BBQ. Our previous services and other past worship events are available on YouTube. Go to YouTube, Tillamook County Methodist United, and you'll come to our upload page. We still have limited access to our facilities, so we ask that you respect that and only gather for essential services. You can participate, though, in our ongoing ministries financially by sending checks to the church office. All of our congregations are deeply involved in food insecurity and serving our local community. I want to remind you that Ben Douglas's Lifestyle Medicine class is on Zoom at 3 p.m. this afternoon. It is the last session on this go around, but it's been such a success that we will undoubtedly be offering it again, along with some additional additions in lifestyle medicine. Remember that next week we will be celebrating communion, so have your juice and bread ready. Well, farewell, be blessed, and now our announcements.
Good morning. Before we begin the announcements, I want to invite you to grab a paper and pencil because we have some new ones that you may want to jot a note. And before that, due to apparently another little glitch, we missed some prayer requests. So I'll share those with you now. Patty Porter wanted us to know that Tyler Young has now been moved to a long-term rehab center in Post Fall, Idaho. He is doing better, but it will be a very slow rehabilitation. When he gets the trach out, he'll be moved to St. Charles in Spokane. She thanks everyone for your continued prayers. Betty Hickey extended praise for hospice workers and invites prayer for the family of John Briscoe, who died with love all around on Friday morning. I've invited everyone to please continue to keep Pastor Mario in our prayers. He continues to recover in Cuba. And now our announcements. So Nehalem Senior Lunches continue on Tuesdays and Thursdays. For $4, you can get a lovely meal. You simply drive up and pick it up between 11:30 and 12:30. Tuesday will be turkey, mashed potatoes, peach crisp. Thursday is a bisque vegetable soup with salad. Nehalem Food Pantry continues its work on Mondays, Fridays, and Saturdays between 10 and 2. Contributions, both financial and food and clothing, are welcome. And I'm particularly pleased to share this next slide with you. It's great to know that the Tillamook Church is also active in this arena, and I'll invite Nancy to say something if she'd like, or Betty.
No,
about
guess
Steve?
again. Yes, our food pantry continues to operate Mondays and Fridays. They have set up a drive-through structure so that it's a pretty contactless method of families, individuals being able to get food boxes. Still accepting donations, of course. You can bring those to the church, either set them in the entrance lobby if the church happens to be open, or you can make your checks payable to the church or directly to the food pantry. Another announcement that didn't get up there, if I might, Steve, is that AARP tax aid has now begun. And if you need assistance with your taxes, call the library and schedule an appointment, and we will be glad to assist you with that. It is a free service to anyone. You don't have to be a senior to be eligible for it.
Thank you very much, Steve. And so now I'll turn to Betty to say a few more words about the Tillamook Ecumenical Community.
And I will turn this over to Nancy.
Anyway, so our Tillamook Ecumenical Community often meets during the Lenten season, well, every year until now, for our soup suppers and readers theater. And unfortunately, we aren't able to hold those. So, and those were one of the major fundraisers for the for TEC, who also is we provide financial support for them, and they provide it out to the community. As Betty said last week, if somebody needs gas for their car to get to work, or it has a unexpected car payment needed, or is in risk of losing housing, we can help with that. So if you'd like to make a donation to TEC, you can do that through TUMC or again directly to TEC. And we do our worships with them regularly as well.
Thank you.
Super, thank you both, Steve and Nancy. Betty, did you have something else?
Nope, that was good.
Okay, great.
I do, Steve.
Okay, go ahead, Steve.
Just a reminder that the Tillamook Grub Club program, the summer lunch program, is just now getting started. And I want to remind people to keep that on their summer schedules, because we will need drivers and sandwich makers and baggers and small baggers and all those people that make that program happen.
Awesome. Thank you, Steve, and thank you, Tillamook congregation. So the scriptures for next Sunday, which will be the third Sunday in Lent, Old Testament is Exodus chapter 20, verses 1 through 17. Our psalm will be number 19. The epistle will come from 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verses 18 through 25, and the gospel will be from John chapter 2, verses 13 through 22. And with that, I would like to thank all the folks who contributed today's service. Betty Hickey, as usual, is the magician behind the curtain. Jenny Myers was one of our pianists today. Stephen and Nancy Kershaw led the call to worship. Scriptures were read by Cecilia Dwiggins and Peter Nunn. The offering for Bishop Hooper was Psalm 61. Ben Douglas shared a wonderful rendition of Blessed Assurance. The Nehalem Bay COVID Quintet sang Great is Thy Faithfulness with us, and the Mount Hebo Voices shared the summons. Francis Hartwell was our prayer host. We also received music from Korean pastor Sue Yi. Carol Brown led our congregational prayer, and of course, Pastor Steve was kind of everywhere at once and delivered us our message for today. Thanks again to Pastor Mario Gonzalez for blessing us. I am Steve Fulmer, your production assistant, and thank you to every one of you for joining us in spirit today. God bless you all.
So now you may unmute